And good evening and welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm Miranda Kahn, in tonight for J.D. Hayworth, who is out on special assignment. It's great to have you with us. Of prime interest tonight, Trump on the stump tonight in Florida, under heavy fire for his comments about Second Amendment people stopping Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump brings his campaign to the Sunshine State tonight, a must-win in the road to the White House.
Oh, I want to see the ones that what I really would like to see, that we have to see the 33,000. Can you imagine? Remember, she said, I think it was for her wedding, the wedding of Chelsea, and it was for yoga classes. 33,000 emails. It's a lot of yoga. It's a lot of yoga. But a couple of very bad ones came out, and it's called pay for play. And some of these were really, really bad and illegal. If it's true, it's illegal. You're paying and you're getting things.
And that was Donald Trump in Abington, Virginia, earlier today, seemingly to be on message, trying to attack Hillary Clinton once again and make her more of the target. Our own J.D. Hayworth is at Trump's rally tonight in Fort Lauderdale. Earlier, he had a chance to sit down one-on-one with Donald Trump for an exclusive interview, and we are going to bring that to you tomorrow night. You don't want to miss it. Now, for this quick reminder, we will be taking your calls for the next hour at 1-877-NEWSMAX. Again, that number is 1-877-639-7629. You can call in with a short question or comment and join us live on the air. Again, that's 1-877-NEWSMAX. Florida, key battleground state. Looking forward to that interview. We now want to bring in our panel. We are pleased to be joined via Skype by former U.S. Attorney General. Is that what we have? No, I'm sorry. U.S. Congressman representing the state of Minnesota, Gil Gutknecht. Also joining us live via Skype, staff writer for the Federalist, Bre Payton. Good to have you with us tonight. A lot to talk about. Bre, we want to start with you. You just heard Donald Trump there talking in Virginia, trying to get a little more on message, get the attention away from what he had to say about the Second Amendment. Do you think this was the right approach, and is it working for him?
Yeah, definitely. I think that Hillary Clinton was such a bad candidate that all he really has to do is just point out her poor record and how bad of a Secretary of State that she was, and the fact that, you know, she broke federal law in order to illegally use an unsecured and unclassified email server, which leaked classified information to the Russians. You know, those are just some things that he has to just point out and say, hey, look, this is what she did. You know, I think that's his really best approach at beating her at this point, is to just point out how bad of a candidate that she is.
I want to talk about Pennsylvania. As we mentioned, Trump is in Florida. He's made a couple stops here. Obviously, this is a key battleground state, and right now a lot of the polls are showing Clinton still winning. And according to some of the more recent polls, Donald Trump appears to have fallen behind. And the Keystone State, that being Pennsylvania, of course, this is the NBC Marist poll. It shows Hillary Clinton currently beating him by about 11 points, 48 to 37%. Now, prior to the Republican and Democratic conventions, Clinton was only leading by 9 points. And here's another one. This one's from Quinnipiac. I want to share this with our viewers. Again, it shows Trump behind Clinton, with her beating him by 10 points, 52 to 42%. Now, based on these two polls, one could assume that Hillary Clinton has Pennsylvania in the bag, but even some Democrats are saying not so fast. Take a listen, Bre.
People have to understand, notwithstanding presidential elections, Pennsylvania is not a blue state. The reason we do well in presidential elections is we get turnout. We have about 900,000 more registered Democrats than Republicans, but they don't turn out nearly as well.
Now, you just heard from former Pennsylvania governor and former Philadelphia mayor Ed Rendell warning that it's not over until it's over. Now, he has said that he supports Hillary Clinton, but he's saying, hey, guys, this isn't in the bag. Bre, does he have a point?
Yeah, so I think that, you know, the polls thus far throughout the entire race have been pretty predictive, right? They told us a year ago that Donald Trump was going to win the primary. They told us a year ago that Hillary Clinton was going to win the primary. And now they're telling us that Hillary's going to win the general election. So I think, you know, if we're looking at the past track record of the way that polls have performed and the way that polls have been accurate over the past year, throughout this entire election cycle, I would say that it's fair to conclude that, okay, the polls are telling us this. They've been pretty accurate so far. I think it's pretty fair to say that she does seem to have Pennsylvania in the bag, and she does seem to be beating him pretty handily at this point.
Now, you're talking about polling. Yeah, it seems like throughout this entire election, a lot of them have been wrong. Why do you think that is?
Sure. I mean, the polls have been going up and down slightly throughout this entire election cycle, giving, Bernie Sanders is beating Hillary Clinton by a tiny bit, or, Marco Rubio is beating Donald Trump by a tiny bit in this one state with this one poll, right? But overall, when you kind of zoom out and look at what the polls have been telling us all along, I would say that they've been pretty on point in terms of, okay, the general trend that we could see a year ago was that these two individuals were going to win the primaries in each of their parties, and they did. So I think when you kind of zoom out for a second and maybe not, hyper focus on, okay, she's now ahead 2 more points than Donald Trump. But if we kind of zoom out and see the overall picture, which is that consistently she seems to be beating him through going into the general election.
But I want to talk about this article. This one comes from CNBC's Jeff Cox, and he says that Trump can win Pennsylvania, and it's all because of his particular stance against illegal immigration. Pennsylvania's immigrant population has more than doubled in the past 25 years, and some people aren't happy about it. Cox writes that they're complaining about unsafe streets and a lack of jobs. He says he thinks Trump has a chance with voters in the central and northern parts of the state, Reagan Democrats, who occasionally vote Republicans. But he's saying that they're definitely going to vote for Trump this year. Your reaction to what he had to say, do you think that's resonating with voters
definitely.
there?
Yeah, I think, Donald Trump definitely has been serving or representing a group of people that's been traditionally ignored by politicians, right? Like in politics, we don't like to talk about the individuals who are losing their jobs. We don't like to talk about the underemployed white Americans, right? We don't like to talk about that. So I think Donald Trump definitely is hitting that niche, and I could definitely see him resonating well and winning among voters that have just been ignored by other candidates, particularly Hillary Clinton.
Okay, we now want to bring in Gil Gutknecht. He's the former congressman from Minnesota. We were trying to establish contact with him earlier, but we do have him. Gil, thanks so much for standing by. Great to have you join the conversation. We've been talking a lot about Trump and these poll numbers and key battleground states, including Florida, where Trump is going to be speaking tonight in Sunrise, Florida. J.D. Hayworth is going to have an exclusive interview with him, and we're going to air that tomorrow night. He's also paying a lot of attention to Pennsylvania, and as you probably heard me talking with Bre, there are a number of articles saying that Trump, don't say that Hillary Clinton has Pennsylvania in the bag, even though it hasn't favored a Republican presidential candidate since before 1992. Do you agree that Trump has a chance there?
No, absolutely. I think if you look back even 4 years ago, going into, I think, the second debate, Mitt Romney was leading in almost all the national polls by at least 5 points. I think we tend to talk about the polls on a day-to-day basis as if that is what it's going to look like come the first week in November. There's a lot of things that are going to happen, I think, over the next 90 days. And Pennsylvania is one of those states that I think was alluded to. I think this campaign is really being cast against a backdrop of a very weak economy and a situation where more Americans feel insecure, not only about their jobs and their future, but they certainly feel insecure as it relates to terrorism. And the problem that Trump has had, somewhat of his own making, is that he's been taken off message. But if he can get back on the message and talk about economic security, about the security of your family, about protecting the borders, about protecting us from terrorist attacks, I think on all of those major issues, the things that people care the most about, I think he's got a huge advantage. So it's not to say that polls don't matter, but I think early polls, as you've seen, they varied, just in the last 2 weeks. I mean,
right.
If you look at the Los Angeles poll, he's gone from 7 points ahead to 8 points behind. And what that really says that there's an awful lot of undecideds out there.
Right. I agree with you. And Trump is going to hold 2 rallies in the Keystone State on Friday. So clearly his campaign is not writing it off as this is going to be a clear win for Hillary Clinton. With that being said, do you think that states like Pennsylvania and Florida are going to come more into play this presidential election than in previous ones?
Well, I think Pennsylvania will definitely be more in play. Obviously, Florida is always in play. Ohio is always in play. But I think you're going to probably see, even in states like Iowa, where, a few months ago, according to a Republican poll, he was ahead by 4 points. Now the national polls show him down by 4. But Iowa is in play. I think Colorado is in play. Clearly Ohio, Pennsylvania, potentially even Minnesota. I mean, I understand that he's planning to come to Minnesota and have a rally. And what that says is that they've looked at the polls and they believe that there's really some opportunity out there in a number of states that may ordinarily not have been in play. The biggest concern I have about Pennsylvania, though, is that we do everything we can, at least the Republican Party in Pennsylvania does everything they can to make sure that we have a fair election, particularly in some of those precincts in Philadelphia. I mean, if you recall, last time there were 59 precincts in the city of Philadelphia where Mitt Romney got 0 votes. Now, just mistakes by people casting their ballots would basically say that he had to get at least 1 or 2 votes in those 59 precincts. So I think there's another issue that Republicans have to be concerned with, and that is stolen elections, particularly in inner cities.
Right. Gil Gutknecht and Bre Payton, thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you. I believe they were there. I hope they heard that. We still have a lot more to talk about here on Newsmax Prime. We talked about 2 families are now suing Hillary Clinton for the deaths of their kids who died in that Benghazi attack. Coming up next after the commercial break, we're going to actually talk to the attorney who's representing those families. We're going to get his reaction and if he thinks he has a chance against the Clinton machine. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss that.